At AIA Australia, helping your clients in their time of need is our number one priority. In 2016, we paid over $1.15 billion in claims to both retail and group members. That's over $4.5 million every working day. To offer your clients cover you can trust, chat to your AIA CDM today.
Welcome everybody to this week's XY Live. This week we're really excited to have Brian Kennaugh from Hunter Financial. He's an advisor and has built an amazing business around his client referrals. Firstly though, I just wanted to say thanks to our friends at AIA for supporting these sessions. That's helps us, bring these things to you. So thanks very much. So Brian, welcome. Great to have you.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you.
So, no, good, and nailing the technology. For some people watching in, they might be thinking that Brian is perhaps a little outside the typical XY participant. But I got up with Brian a few months back for a coffee, and he was telling me about the things that he's doing in his business, and some of the numbers that he was throwing around was amazing. So, I think when it comes to advice these days, people sometimes, it's easy to get caught up in that technology and you're trying to, do all these things differently and do different things in your business. But it's important to do the basics really well, the fundamentals as well. So today we're going to learn a bit about some of those basics. And I know for me, referrals is something that we're really unstructured with and pretty poor at. So I'm sure some great content and some good tips for everyone. So Brian, can you just tell us first of all just a little bit about your business so people know what it sort of looks like?
Sure. So we've got a business in Hunter Valley, so in Belmont, south of Newcastle. We've got 18 staff, turnover over 3 mil. There's a number of advisors. My business partner, who owns the majority of the business, is more like you guys. He's 37, and we also have an investor, and I have a small share left in the business. And we deal with clients from probably 30 to 35 years of age through to 85.
Okay.
So we don't believe in picking a particular niche.
Okay, and so what sort of work do you do with your clients?
Yep. So it's holistic financial planning. So we include insurances, risk assessment, estate planning, investments, superannuation, so the whole gambit.
Okay, and so the business has been around for, is it 2007 or 7 years?
No, it's been since, so it's now 11 or 12 years old.
Okay. And how many advisors?
4, about to be 5.5.
Okay, due to the wait time, I'm sure we'll come to that in a sec. And how many clients does your business look after?
We look after very well about 600, but we've got about 1,000 on the books.
Okay, great. And so I'm really keen to talk about the client referrals, because some of these numbers, when we caught up a few months back and just chatting before are pretty amazing. You mentioned 78% of your clients refer other clients into the business. And I know that these figures are still being sort of finalised, but you noted that 90% or thereabouts of your new business is coming from client referrals. So can you just tell us a bit about that and how that all came about?
Sure. It's definitely not luck. And it's definitely not just because we give good service. So some years back, we started a program where on every agenda of every meeting, one of the last items is personal introductions. So we've stopped using the word referral and we use personal introductions. So Ben, if you and I were at a pub together having a drink and Ray walked in, you would say, Brian, let me introduce you to Ray. You wouldn't say, let me refer you to Ray. So, well, I hope you wouldn't. So we've shifted away from that and used personal introductions. And it is on every agenda. So your first meeting with us, your second meeting, the third meeting, which is the plan presentation, the reviews, it's on every agenda. We do have some basic tools that we use. So we give clients a sheet that they can fill out and put on friends and family's names and contact details. The truth is, probably 1 in 50 people fill out the form. But we found that when we reviewed and did our survey of our clients, and we do it every 2 years, so we're due to do it again next year, 71% of our clients were willing to refer, and therefore in most firms you would find that 20 or 25% actually referred. But 71% of our clients were willing to refer, and 78% actually referred. So the process of us constantly asking, and it's a gentle introduction. So we use words like, Ben, if you're happy with our service and we've done a great job for you, you know people that we don't know, is there any reason why you wouldn't be keen to personally introduce us to your friends and family? And most people go, no reason at all. Well, look, we've got some tools here that may help you, but we love caring for people, and so we'd love to care for your friends and family. And we'll actually be mentioning this at every meeting because, quite frankly, this is how we've grown our business. We love dealing with people like you. And so people then refer. If we didn't have the constant reminders, then it just wouldn't happen because you get busy and you forget. And you concentrate on servicing or delivering the implementation of the plan and you forget to ask. So it's a constant reminder for us, and it's on every agenda.
Okay. And so when this conversation happens, is there a framework for when you would do it? So you have those couple of sentences that you mentioned that sounds like would be in the first meeting to sort of position it. Is that something, do you do that, where does it sort of fit in?
Yep. So it's the last item on every agenda, so it doesn't matter what the meeting is. And so on the second meeting, we would simply say, now, Ben, you remember in our first meeting we talked about personal introductions? And you'll go, yes. Most people at that point say, look, I haven't thought about it, or I have thought about it, and I'm not sure what to do next. Or they say, I've actually got a few people in mind. What's the best way for me to approach them? So if they haven't thought about it, we go, that's fine. Understand that we're all busy. We just mentioned to you, Ben, that we're going to bring it up at every meeting, and so we don't want to let you down or let your friends and family down. So it's on our agenda, and we'll mention it again the next time we meet. Is that okay with you? To get their permission, and everyone says, yeah, sure.
What would you say, Brian, for perhaps young advisors that may be a bit petrified to consistently ask their clients about this stuff? I know, for myself, I'm really confident and happy with the work that I do for my clients, but there's still that little thing inside me that goes, geez, I don't want to be that guy that just asks and asks and asks. So, yeah. Perhaps that's just me.
Ray, it's not just you, it's all of us, but it's the same issue that we have with setting our fees. It's the same issue we have with asking for personal introduction. It's the same issue that we have with raising our fees and acknowledging the value that we give to clients. It's in our own head. So once we conquer that in our own head and we see that people are happy and not offended, and we use normal everyday language and it's not a hard sell, then people go, oh, that makes sense. And then we go, oh. So it's like the first time that we, some years back, we shifted from a commission and a small fee for a plan to a total fee for service model. And when we first did a plan for 10,000, we were all a bit nervous. And client goes, so I get all of that just for 10 grand a year? We go, yeah. Oh, that's great. And we're like, what were we nervous about? Yeah. So now, as you grow, we've got clients with a recurring revenue of 30 grand a year. But it was in our head initially, and it's the same with asking for personal introductions.
Yeah, look, I think I sort of feel the same way as Ray on this, to be honest. I suppose it's very interesting to hear about that approach. One thing actually I didn't mention before, just for the guys that are watching in, we are going to have some time for questions for Brian as well. So for anyone that's watching, feel free, if you've got any questions or issues, anything that you want to ask Brian, you can type it into the chat box just on the right hand side here, and we'll get to them through the session as well. So Brian, with how you ask, one of the things you mentioned is about, and I've heard this sort of framing of sentences quite a lot, that they say that you say, if we do a good job and we do all these things for you, is there any reason why you wouldn't refer? To me, that feels a bit weird, I feel a bit weird about that. Do you think that particular framing is important? Because I hear that a lot for different elements of the sales process. And I fully acknowledge that we all work in sales. Like, I get that. That's just, you're helping people discover a need and then solve the problem. But is it, are there variants on that you use, or is that line important?
No, that's one of them. So we do have scripts, and we encourage our advisors to stick to the scripts, but to make them their own. So one of the ways that is done by our team is, I've loved helping you, and it was great to meet you. And by the way, Ben, I wouldn't have met you unless Ray had introduced us. So it sort of makes sense that you would introduce us to your friends and family, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And most people go, yep. So because we've been introduced, people that we don't know, and we'd love to help them.
I'm keen, Brian, to maybe explore if there's been any pushback from clients. I know for me personally, I'm probably not that keen on talking to my friends about my personal finances and the like. Is that something that you've come across where clients said, yeah, look, I really, really appreciate it, but to be honest, I prefer not to talk. It's a bit taboo to talk to my mates about that. I prefer just to, talk about the footy team, whatever.
Yeah, sure. A couple of people have therefore said, no, we're never going to introduce it to anybody. That's fine. They can be in that 10%, because we believe that now our numbers will show, when we survey next year, that 90% of our clients are introducing friends and family. The other aspect to that, Ray, is we would then say to them, look, you need to understand that, as we mentioned in our first couple of meetings, everything that you tell us is strictly confidential. And same with your friends. Exactly the same with your friends. So we don't want you to tell them what advice you've got or what you're dealing with or anything like that. We simply need you to say, we've found these people trustworthy. They're actually becoming good friends, and I think you should go and talk to them. One of the other leads that we use is we remind people that their first 2 appointments are at our cost. And so the first appointment is a discovery meeting, and that allows us to discover whether we're going to take you on as a client. And it also allows you to discover whether you want to deal with us. And if at some point we decide to part company, then we do that diplomatically and graciously to each other. And the worst thing that's happened is we've met a new friend. In the second meeting, we reiterate that again. So the first 2 meetings are at our cost. If you decide to proceed from that point, you know exactly the value that we're going to add to your situation, and you know the fees. So there's really no harm in introducing your friends and family to us, because if they decide to exit, that's their choice. And we won't be telling you about that. We'll be thanking you that you've introduced them, but that's it.
Do you, Brian, thank you for that. One thing I know we work with in our firm quite a lot, and we're constantly struggling to reinvent the wheel and think about things, but client events, creating things where our clients can or would want their friends to come to that we would host. Do you do any of that sort of stuff?
We've talked about that for maybe 5 years. We would like to, and we've worked out all various machinations of that. To be honest, it's probably up to me, and we're just so busy we haven't done it. Would clients enjoy it? I'm sure they would. Is there all sorts of ways that can work? Absolutely. Would we like to do it? Yes. Yeah. Will we do it? Probably.
Look, I suppose if you're getting 80 to 90% of your clients referring without doing the events, obviously you're looking after them, so it's
yes.
not critical, and it probably wouldn't do any good things for your wait time to see an advisor, which
right.
Brian mentioned to me just before the call was between 6 and 12 weeks at the moment. So clearly this stuff gets results. Yes. So I just to follow up with the process that you use. You mentioned before, and when we were chatting previously as well, about this sheet that you give for the people, and not many people use that. Are there any other tools that you use apart from just that constant, like just bringing it up and reminding people when you have meetings with them?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I should mention that on the top of that sheet is a statement that says most of our clients introduce their family and friends to us. We'd like to help your family and friends. So it's, without saying it, it's an expectation and assumption, because it says most of our clients introduce their family and friends. We've also done up some little business cards that say on it, you've been introduced to Hunter Financial. And it's got our details on the front and our statement that we maximise the probability of you achieving your financial destiny, and we help you make wise decisions about money. On the back is like a doctor's appointment card with spots for time and date. And so they give that to their friends and say, you can ring these people and make a time. And we find that people ring and say, oh, I've got one of your appointment cards, I just need to note down the date and time.
Okay.
So yeah, it kind of feels like then, it's quite literally, the obstacle's in your head, or as an advisor. And if you consistently are asking the questions, then, it's simply, if you don't ask, it's going to stay at 0. But if you do ask consistently, you can get as high as 90. And then it's just giving something that they can give to their friends, and it can just be as simple as an appointment card to say, hey, and that's kind of it. It feels remarkably simple to the point where I don't get why we aren't better at this stuff.
Yeah. Yes. And look, when I talk about this at seminars or here in a webinar, most people doubt our numbers. Most people go, really? That can't be right. I'm telling you it is. And it's a wonderful way to do business, because they're warm referrals, or the term that we use, introductions. Recently we had an accounting firm, which is one of the big 4, introduce us to a wealthy client, and we worked with them on some things. Since that time, we now have the whole family, brothers, sisters, mother, and wonderful clients. Now, they said to us, it's amazing that you've now got the whole family here. And the accountant said, that's because they ask. And so the accountant was learning by sitting in on all those meetings. And I just think it's something where if you stick to it and do it casually, non-threatening, release people, then most people, obviously you've got to give very good service. If you're not giving good service, then it falls down. But yeah.
Is there a particular type of advice, Brian, that you see is more, it's an easier way for the clients to refer? I'm just thinking from my own experiences where perhaps I don't ask for referrals, but in our business, our average client's 65, so we do a lot of estate planning and intergenerational wealth. So just by virtue of that, I find myself speaking to a lot of, well, now ex-clients' children, and making sure that the assets are being passed down in a way that's consistent with their financial planning, and through that, I'm finding that the siblings have become clients, and so we see a little bit of that, but it's only by virtue of the fact that I'm trying to look after my primary clients. It's like a vicarious referral. Sure. Do you find that estate planning is a real strong way for advisors to earn the right to ask, or is it just, again, you just go for it?
It's actually in any area, Ben. It's a good it's a good question, but once again, it's in our head. So I would challenge you, what friends of the plus 65-year-olds have you been introduced to? And what friends and family of the children have you been introduced to? Yeah. So if you haven't got introductions from the 40 and 50-year-olds into their network, then you're not looking after them. So part of our DNA is that the Australian community is underinsured and not seeing enough people for quality advice. Well, we simply say, bring them in. Get them in here because we want to help people. People need our help, and unless you bring them in, you don't want to be the one standing around saying, oh, if only I'd introduced them to Hunter Financial.
Yeah.
So it's a passion. It drives everything that we do.
So to follow up though on that one, Brian, have you found that there's any particular door opener, I suppose, that makes it easier for an introduction, as you say, to sort of connect with your business? Do like if you get introduced to a person that needs comprehensive financial planning versus someone that just has an insurance need that you solve, or an investment need, is there anything that you find is like a sweet spot, or on the flip side, a particular type of advice or need that is more difficult for you to actually convert to a client from that introduction?
Yeah, good question. I don't think so. However, we do set some standards. So, for instance, if we've got 5 criteria. They must be people like us. They must be people like our other clients. There must be some complexity where we can add value, and not just taking on a client for the sake of it. If we can't add value, then we won't see them. They must be willing to pay for advice, and they must be willing to introduce family and friends. So if they fit that criteria, and probably the biggest one there is complexity and us adding value, then we'll deal with them. So thinking about people who, what's the sweet spot and what's our better introduction, I think the fact that the first 2 appointments are at our cost rather than the word free, because then they acknowledge there is a cost. And the fact that we openly say, and it's up to you to decide whether you'll be a client of ours, and it's up to us to decide whether we can add value and bring you on as a client. So you set the criteria and the foundations, and they know straight away when they come in. So, for instance, a couple of years back, there was an elderly lady introduced to us, and in the second meeting, we said to her, look, you're actually doing a great job. We can't add value. It'd be nice to bring you on as a client and charge you a fee, but really, that's not what we're about. We can't add value. You should keep doing what you're doing. If in 12 or 18 months' time you want to come back and ask us questions, we're happy for you to come in just to chat about stuff, but we can't add value. She was like, oh, this is fantastic. Well, in the next 3 months, we had all her married children as clients.
Wow.
So it's just that, I think that genuineness of adding value and saying to people the first 2 appointments are at our cost.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of our keys, I think.
Okay. So I do have a follow-up for that, but I've just saw a question that's come up from Lee Smith asking if we could get access to those scripts. Are you able to share? I figured I may as well put you on the spot.
No, we paid a lot of money to work those through, so they're now our own IP. But if you replay this webinar and you're smart enough, you could make up 70% of the scripts anyway.
So you've just developed those yourself from refining over time?
No, we had a external consultant come in and work with us on it, and then we made them our own. So they assisted, and then we made our own.
It's kind of a nice segue into a question. I was going to throw you a bit of a curveball, Brian. You got to the point where you've got these scripts that seem to obviously be working 9 times out of 10, and before that, what were some of the mistakes that perhaps you guys were making, and you found yourselves not getting the results?
Being too bold, asking for referrals instead of personal introductions. Straight away, people go, "Oh, sales." Even though we are in sales. And the script, we've refined that and continue to review it to just make sure that it's still genuine, it's us, it's not forced, and it's part of who we are.
Yeah. Did you try any incentive programs or anything like that where, maybe not giving them a clip of what you're earning for referral, but just, rewarding clients financially or otherwise through referrals?
I would never offend anybody by doing that. To me, that's just terrible. So I know that in years past, we used to do it with accountants and lawyers and give them a referral fee basically, and we actually had referral agreements that were formalised, and we declared it on our SOAs that we were paying XYZ accounting firm, X dollars. But no, we've stopped all of that. We never mention it. It's never asked for. We don't even go there.
Yeah.
So Brian, and apologies to Lee, I did do my best there, but just with the...
Let me reiterate. What I can do is I can send to you the sheet and a copy of the business cards, and you can attach it for everybody.
That'd be great. So we'll post those up in the Facebook group, post the session for everyone looking in, and thanks for that, Brian. Appreciate it.
In light of the fact that we don't offer referral fees, I won't ask for a bottle of red or anything like that.
Well, we love giving gifts, so you might be surprised.
That's very kind. Thank you, Brian.
So, Brian, what do you find though? So you're getting all these different referrals, different types of people, but what do you find is the the main sort of business that you're doing with these referrals? Because you're saying you do holistic, comprehensive planning and strategy work, but what does it actually look like for the people that you get in versus insurance only versus super versus comprehensive from the referral side?
We would hardly do any risk only these days. It's usually not worth it for us because the clients don't want to go into a fee-for-service model. They simply want a transaction. And we say, look, there are lots of places that you can go and get that transaction organised. We want to deal with you. We want to deal with your spouse. We want to deal with your business partners. We want to look after every aspect of your financial life. And if you're not prepared for us to do that, then it's probably not the right fit.
Okay. So yeah, okay. Well, that's amazing. Because I wasn't sure. I know sometimes it's people talk about referrals, and with insurance, it's probably an easier conversation, especially if people have already got that cover. But to get those numbers with doing, the overall strategy stuff, I think is amazing.
That opens up something I was thinking, Brian. Is there perhaps thinking for younger advisors, taking into you've got an established business and perhaps that affords some flexibility with who you work with. Sure. But is that, if you're a young advisor and starting out a bit, like you'd be screaming for any bit of business you can get to get yourself started. Is it perhaps, would your advice then be to young people starting out to, be really mindful and not chase the quick money, but, to remain firm around saying no to business?
Yeah, look, within reason, you can't have every week go by without writing business because you've decided that you're only going to deal with people with blue suits and pink hair because that's your niche. You go broke real quick. So within reason, yes, but you must know what it is that you want. So unless you've set some agenda and criteria around where you want to work, then how do you know? So if you're hunting bears, you don't know what a bear looks like, you're not going to find them. So decide what your bear is going to be within your business and go looking for them. In the meantime, if a lion or a cub or someone comes along and wants to do business with you, then sure. And maybe you might even say to them, you know what, I actually don't normally deal with your situation, but I'm happy to help you out on this occasion.
Sure.
Rather than begging, oh, please come to me.
Yeah, I think that's just very important to make sure that you're positioning yourself for that, for the valuable service that you provide, right? So, cool. So I just saw a question come up from Ezra, and it sort of ties in with one of the questions that I was going to ask. So I'll ask you them sort of both. Ezra talks about, the need for activity, but to drive this, but then asks, when you're talking to your clients about these introductions, do you need to coach or guide them about how the introduction process should work, or what they should do? And then leading into what I wanted to ask was that, what have you found is the best way for getting a referral? So if I'm your client and you have that conversation with me and I say, okay, yeah, that's great, Brian, I love your work. I know a guy, I want to introduce him. What do you do? What do you do from there? And what have you found? Is there anything that works better than others?
So we used to try and control that straight away. What we do now is, I would say, Ben, how would you normally go about that? If you were referring them to your BMW dealership and a great mate of yours that sells cars, how would you normally go about that? If you were referring them to your doctor or your dentist, or just telling people, I want to introduce you to my GP because he's great, how would you go about that? So we asked them. They then come back and say, oh, I'd normally do this. Well, that works for us. Why don't you give it a try and let us know how you go? And then we'd follow them up and say, hey, Ben, how'd you go? So we ask them. If they say, look, I don't normally do this, but I'm happy to do it, how can I do it? Then we will give them a little bit of coaching and say, look, we suggest that you mention to them that we're going to give them a call, and then give us their details, and we'll do a softly call. But be assured, you will never, ever be embarrassed. Yeah.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you were previously doing it a little differently. What was that? And is there a learning, that's come out of that that's got you to change to the approach that you take now?
Yeah, it was probably too salesy, Ben. Too hard, too firm, too, we expect this from you. If you don't get it to us today, tomorrow will be fine. It was just a bit too, it was too pushy.
Okay.
And so we've backed right off.
Sorry,
But
Ben.
it's still,
sorry, Brian. I cut you off.
it's still, yeah, that's right. But it's still in every meeting. So although we've backed off and it's softer in terms of language and approach, it's still there in every meeting.
Yeah, sure. And so with the, you mentioned that when if someone asks you, then you can give them some insights or some tips or something. What do you say what's the sort of insight that you give them?
So it'd be something like, Ben, if you were going to talk to Ray about us, would you normally do that over a beer on a Friday night, or would you do it over the phone or email? How would you normally communicate with him about that? So whatever the person says, let's say it's email, we say, well, look, why don't you shoot them an email and copy me in, here's my card, copy me into that, and then I'll just follow them up and I'll let you know how we go.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It's making sure that it's always in their language and their format and how they're comfortable with it. And it just, you are prompting them and helping them, but you're not necessarily coming in like a control freak that I used to be.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. So look, I've got one last question just before we open it up to questions from the guys watching in. And for anyone that's watching, if you've got any questions or things that you'd like to ask Brian, you could just type them in the chat box there, and we'll come to them in a sec. So my question is, I don't know if you look into this data at this sort of level, but have you found, like, when do people typically refer? Have you found that people tend to refer more at the front end, or, as you go through, or, all throughout?
Yeah, good question. We tried to analyse that and we tried to get a bit of a benchmark on it. No idea. Some people, before they even become clients. So they loved the experience of the discovery meeting, and before they even get to signing terms of engagement, they've referred 3 or 4 people. It's like, really? And others, 18 months' time. So there's actually no science that we can find in that data. What we do know is, because we have it on the agenda all the time and are doing it gently and in a nice language, then people introduce their family and friends.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose it doesn't really matter, I suppose, when it happens, as long as it happens right.
Yeah, that's right.
So for those that maybe have kind of signed in throughout the webinar, I've put together maybe six kind of key takeaways, which, first of all, when you're asking for referrals, I think the obstacles are clearly in your head rather than in the right to ask. So that was one of the first ones. It's helpful to perhaps give something to your clients to give to their referrals, if it's a business card or just something to pass on to them. They've got all your contact details. Don't be too abrupt. Was one of the learnings, and that falls into the next point, which says, it needs to be authentic. Otherwise, this stuff's going to feel a bit synthetic. It's not going to work. To what Brian was just talking about, in their language, in their way of communicating it. You're not, don't feel like you need to own that process, and don't control it. Allow that to happen organically, because ultimately they're friends because of the way that they like talking to each other. So don't disrupt that. Just fit into whatever that is. And I think probably one of the biggest ones that I'll definitely take out of this is not referrals you're asking for. It's a personal introduction. It's introducing like you would have one friend to another. You're not the pub referring your mates to each other. It's like you're just getting together, and you've got a sense that these guys like each other. So catch up and shoot the breeze.
Yep, very good.
Cool. So I got a question from Lee asking about how many new clients you take on per whatever period following this referral type strategy.
Yeah, good question, Lee. We aim for 30 a month, and we probably hit 15 to 20 every month, and every now and then we hit 30.
Wow.
But that's why we've got capacity issues.
Yeah, that's big numbers. So okay, and so a related question from another Ray, talking about, you know, when you're onboarding clients, do you look at their lifetime value or the metrics around that, and does that drive any of the, you know, your approach?
Just explain from the question what they mean by lifetime value.
Like in terms of,
so the lifetime value of a client.
Yeah, so I'm your client, but then you figured out that I'm going to refer you 4 other people on average, and then they generate revenue for the business.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, never. It's the implied future value of that client will grow with us, but never about the potential of them to refer. So, for instance, if you dealt with accountants and were really looking after the accountant and spending coffee with them once a month based on the fact that you were going to get a lot of referrals, you've just wasted a lot of time and money, because it ain't going to happen, in my experience.
Right. Okay. Well, that's probably a good lead into the question that I've got from Dylan, and I'm not sure that the response is going to help him after that. But he's asking about what's the like? Can you provide any guidance or an effective way to help and educate potential referral partners like your accountants, solicitors, brokers to better recognise a person that you would want an introduction with, or to be better at those conversations?
Yeah, look, Dylan, it's a good question, and I've struggled this for years. We have a relationship with one of the senior partners in a very large, one of the big 4 accounting firms here in Newcastle. They have a massive financial planning practice both in Sydney and Melbourne, and they don't refer to it because Novocastrians, for some reason or other, like to deal with people in Newcastle. So we've developed this relationship with this partner, and every now and then he introduces to wealthy people. We've only ever said to him, pardon me, we've only ever said to him, we want to help your clients. You're keen to care for your clients. That's your nature. We care for them as well. If there's an area that we can assist that you can't, then please give us a call. That's really it. Our own personal accountants for the business and our private, they refer, but even them, you know, they struggle. Solicitors, every now and then. Mortgage brokers, yeah, a bit. What we find is all of those people are so busy, particularly with compliance and new business regulations. We're not top of mind. At times we've run training sessions for accountants once a month. We'll go in and give their whole team a training session on something. We'll give them a checklist that they can go through with clients. You know, do you have life insurance? Do you have income protection? So that they can then say to the client, well, look, we're going to introduce you to someone to look after this. A lot of hard work for very, very little return. So we just decided to concentrate on our own clients.
Okay. So
Sorry.
I figured the response might have went that way. So did you? Yeah, I suppose it was the issue that they didn't have time and didn't refer, because it sounds like you're already doing some of those education type activities. Would you say?
Yeah. Look, I think that they don't know how. It's not in their nature, and no matter how much you try and educate them, they're just not good at it. If you've got a great relationship with a couple of those people, then it's more likely to happen. But if you're, jumping on the bandwagon with everybody else, trying to look after some of their clients, we've also said to people, look, in our database, they're tagged as your client. So don't worry, we're never going to cross-sell them to anybody.
Sure.
That's a comfort thing, and so that sometimes helps.
No, that makes sense, and I know that that's something that I've found with from my experience as well, that it's always challenging working with those other professionals. Plus, it's a very saturated space as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it in a second, but I'd just like to ask you one final question. So for the people watching in, I think it would be hard to not identify this enormous opportunity that exists within all of our businesses. So if I want to get started, what should I do? What do you think? What's the best next step for me to take?
Start. Just start. Look, I have a commercial proposition where people can book me for a half day to lead their whole team through this. But to be honest, I think just start. Start using the right language, start using the words, start to build some scripts, trial it. We in the early days, we would say to people, we need your help. I think there's some of the best 4 words in the English language. I need your help. I've never come across anybody who's turned around and told me to pee off. I'm not going to help you. Most people want to help. I do it at airline counters. I do it at restaurants. I need your help. And people go, sure. Same with clients. I need your help. Brian, what do you need me to help you with? Well, if I don't build my business, then I'm not going to be around to be able to look after you and service you and your family. I'd love to deal with people like you. Can you help me find some?
You make it sound so easy.
He does, doesn't he?
Sorry, that's why I've got no hair and it's this colour. It's taken time.
Yeah. No, that is fantastic. And I think like we tell a lot of our clients, the best way to start is to take action and build up from there. Some fantastic tips. So thank you very much for sharing. It's been great to be hitting you up for those couple of sheets that you use and sharing.
I haven't forgotten.
We won't need the Brian. But no, thank you very much. It's been great. I think, like I said at the start, it's so easy to get caught up, doing all the fancy stuff, but the foundations are so critical. So, really appreciate you sharing.
My pleasure. Ben, if I can just say, in relation to your question about starting, can I encourage people just to set a target of 1 new personal introduction per week or fortnight, whatever they're comfortable with, and then gradually increase that and build it up to 10 a month. The wealth that you build in your business by doing that, and therefore not relying on one person or 2 advisors, because the business is growing organically without an individual being the key focus, is enormous. And if you do the exponential numbers of 1 a week or 1 a month, and then next year it's 2 a week or 2 a month, and the year after that it's 5, the growth in each individual business is astronomical.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's clearly a massive opportunity, and I think it's good advice. I take it back again to what we do with our clients: start small, build on it, and then you get the just grows over time. So,
and it's a fun way to do business.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian. For everyone watching in, we've got next week, we've got MJ Fitzpatrick, who I heard speak at an event recently in Sydney. Absolutely amazing with his communications. We've got the link up there to register, and just noting that we will also post those the collateral that Brian's going to share with us into the Facebook group. So if you're not already in there, you should definitely do it, because there's some amazing conversations happening in there as well. Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you again, Brian. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you soon. See you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Brian. See you, Ben. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.